Good evening. Well, this is the beginning of the Planning Commission for February 15th, 2024. I will start with item 1, roll call. Alderman Ryer is excused, the mayor is excused, and that's it. I'm sorry. Commissioner Mock is out of state too. The rest of the commissioners are here. Item 2, approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. After reviewing the minutes, I would like to make a motion to move agenda item 4 up in the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Motion carries. Agenda item 4, concept plan for Shannon Farm subdivision. For agenda item 4, at the request of the mayor, because of a majority of the appointed commissioners, the mayor had conflicts this evening, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this matter to a special plan commission meeting to be held on Monday, February 19th at 5:30 p.m. here in City Hall at these council chambers. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? None being heard, motion carries. So this item will be taken up on Monday. I cannot take it up today. Can't. We will now move on to public comments and appearances. Anybody is welcome to speak. You have 3 minutes to speak. Please step up to the microphone if you'd like to.
Scott Hebner, 1771 Laurel Lane. I was going to comment about Shannon Farm since that's being moved. I find it's disrespectful to the citizens who have showed up here tonight. This is a very important topic for the community, and you disrespect that people don't show up and you move it and make it inconvenient for other people to show up is just not, I can't even fathom it. The way this government is being run and the way this has happened, I'm appalled.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Jerry Boland, 1772 Laura Lane. I have 3 questions to pose. I just want to put them out here right now so we can maybe get answers either this evening or next Monday's meeting. The first would be, what research has been done on the probable changes in the property tax valuations for the adjoining subdivisions? That would be Greystone and Bly Park Estates. Second question I'd like to have an answer to would be, why do we, at the new development, why do we need more than 2 entrances there? If I look in Bly Park's Estates and some of the other ones, we have usually 2 entrances in that subdivision. The proposed plot I see has 5 entrances in it. And the third question I would like to know is, if Laura Lane right now is currently just a dead end, rather than making a through street there, if we had either a cul-de-sac developed or a T type of ending there, so trucks, the waste trucks and the snow plows could turn around a little bit easier than they can do now, what effect does that have on the overall development cost? So maybe somebody wants to answer them tonight, great. If not, we'll come back on Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harris, did you record those questions?
All right, Mark Gibbs, lifelong resident of Port Washington. I live on 1724 Laurel Lane. I've been there over 20 years. Since we're going to have this meeting officially, it looks like on Monday, I want to just give you my highlight concerns. One is Laurel Lane. My recommendation is to keep it closed from a safety and value position. I think, number one, you've got remarkable views of the city, which are wasted if you just make it a through street, that you could have some really, really nice houses and views, literally overlooking the city and the lake. So keep it closed. Drainage and contamination. Drainage with just the flow of the watershed Where I live, I mean, I've got video of it, of where you can see so much water coming down that street. And so that's something that we really need to think about. The contamination, again, you've got a farm site, not just farm fields. So you wonder after decades and decades, what type of diesel fuel contamination, pesticide contamination. So those are things to be concerned with. And I'd like to know at some point, what type of environmental studies would be done. Thirdly is just the overall density of the development, because it is completely out of character with anything we've ever done in this city and what was originally envisioned for that property. Originally, I recall it was going to be a soccer fields, then potentially baseball fields. I know it was toyed around with, put the fire department out there. And then I remember the mayor saying at one point that he wanted this to be, it's our gateway to the city, so it really needs to be special. And to me, that sounds more like your traditional style type of development. So again, the density of the development is a concern. And then lastly, what's the overall impact to the city as far as having such a surge in new development and new residents? It's going to be a shock to the city, to the schools, to the tax base, the demands on services, the police, fire, and rescue, and all of that. So, I mean, growth is inevitable. I get it. We're a great city. People want to live here, but I think it needs to be done in a responsible and collaborative way. And I'm really hopeful that listening to us, and not just listening to us politely, but taking our feedback and using it to shape what can hopefully be the best development possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
Can you speak if you're on the phone?
Yes, you can. Can you, your name and address, please?
Yep. So my name is Stephanie Hackey, and I am a property owner on Wisconsin Street, 511 North Wisconsin Street. I wanted to just quickly, I have questions both for the city and the developers, so I'll just ask my city questions. Maybe like other folks, people can come to the mayor and the city planner can come next week with maybe some answers. I'm not against continued development of residential housing in Washington. Growth isn't bad as long as the city is thoughtful, strategic, and has the best interests of its citizens in mind. But some strategic questions I have for the city that I think they need to make sure that they have in place before they approve this very dense development are as follows. School, there will be a potential increase in school enrollment, which will put a strain on classrooms and the student to teacher ratio, as well as potential physical building overcrowding. Currently, the average class size in Port Washington is 20 for each teacher. Suggested student to teacher ratios based off of the Wisconsin Department of Education website is 15-1. Traffic, really want to understand the traffic study that the city has done to understand and anticipate increased traffic, particularly turning onto Highway 33. If there are potentially 2 cars per each one of these houses or apartments, that's over 500 cars a day that could be using that exit. Emergency response, can the current police and fire departments accommodate this large of an influx of residents? There already is an EMS issue. Want to understand what the strategic plan is for that. Affordable housing, I've seen a lot of things online where people are talking about affordable housing. Both the mayor and the planner have been quoted as saying the development will provide affordable housing. I think it's important for the citizens to understand what the city's definition of affordable housing is. The average median household income for the city of Port Washington is $70,333, which means that according to HUD, for it to be affordable housing, the average rent or mortgage rate would have to be only 30% of the median income, which is about $1,300 a month. So I'm kind of curious about that. And then I'm also curious about how the city is going to handle parking, how the city regulates parking in this very dense subdivision. How will there be any issues with emergency vehicles getting through if people have to park on the street? So those are my questions as far as trying to understand the city's strategy and strategic planning as it relates to accepting the proposed concept plan as it currently is. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pleitner.
Jonathan Pleitner, 1890 Astor Street, and also the 5th Ward Alderman for this district. A couple of concerns that I had initially, one that we had talked about last month and the pre-concept plan and discussion was the absence of a park. And I see now that there are 2 pocket parks, planned for the subdivision. So I would express my gratitude there because I do think there is a need for make sure there's some amenities for parkland on the far west side of town. So I'm appreciative of that. I would echo some of the sentiments that have already been expressed here this evening, that we continue to have dialogue with the school district to make sure that they're aware of the greater influx, particularly at Saukville Elementary, when there's growth here. Then, of course, drain on city services if there's additional needs for police, fire, streets work, making sure that all those department heads are covered off with. I guess I would address that to Roger and Bob, then making sure that everyone's well aware of the increased need for those services. And if there's any considerations that the police and fire and parks department would have on that, with only 3 people in the parks department, we're going to make sure of what kind of parks we're adding over there, right, Bob? So that would be appreciated. And then I think I would still like to express my general sentiment in favor of this project, because I think it does add a unique type of housing to the city, but just make sure that we're exercising this growth responsibly, and that there's an expectation that there will be increased need for city services on that side of town. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak?
Hello, I'm Laura Ashley, 1723 Laura Lane. And one of the concerns I have, and other people have mentioned it, is certainly the increase in traffic coming down the block on a street. When I need to get to the medical college, it takes me 5 to 8 minutes to make a left-hand turn already from Martin onto 33. People are coming over that hill. I don't know who else has driven that hill, but you cannot see people until they get to that hill and over. So you try to make your turn. People are coming from the other way. I've nearly been hit numerous times. In the winter, Laura Lane is a toboggan. Always has been, always will be. I feel really sorry for the house that's on Martin at the bottom of the hill, because I have seen school buses slide down the hill almost into that house on numerous occasions, as well as police, the mailman. I don't know how many times my garbage cans were like knocked all the way over to the side of the street. Was everybody knocked over to the side of the street today? Because they slid all the way down the hill, knocked down all the garbage cans while they were trying to plow the street. Plow the street. So you can imagine, now you're going to add a whole bunch more cars coming down that. We have no problem with a subdivision. We like the idea of a subdivision. I would like to go walk my dog up the hill and through a subdivision. But part of the problem is the density you're talking about of the subdivision and opening Laura Lane to that density. It's not building something there. We'd love to have people up there. We'd love to have more neighbors. But not when we can't get out of our homes, not when I can't make a turn to get to work. That's not okay. Not when we have rain, and that hill is insane in rain. We have something that looks like a river. I know your yard has been flooded on many occasions. Our back has been completely flooded on many occasions already. They tried to build the farm before, yeah, he's got some video. They tried to build this farm, I believe, in Germantown. It was even called the farm. And then $5 million more was asked for sewer and water. Was it sewer and water you needed more money for down there? I read the article. So if you're looking for it, please look for it online. There was more money that was needed for sewer or water or utilities, something that was up there. And Germantown said, no, this is in 2019. So I ask for you, please, to look for that. Because I don't want a house with a flooded basement. I don't want a house with a flooded yard, and we already have a lot of water. And I don't know if you've looked at Laura Lane recently. Our street is not exactly the nicest looking street. More potholes probably than the cars on the road, right guys? Yeah, so we ask that you please look at this, and please know that we're not saying that we don't want neighbors. We're saying, would you want that density next to you? And look at where all of you live. Do you have that kind of density in that smallest space right by you? And please consider that. and we will be back. I had to take off work tonight. My daughter is babysitting for her child, so I really wish somebody would have let us know ahead of time that they weren't going to cover this today. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak? Anybody else like to speak? One more time. Anyone else like to speak? If not, we're closed. We'll be going on the agenda then. We'll now go to item 5, extraterritorial plat review. Mr. Harris.
You'll give me a minute, I'll just wait, and then also need to get onto the PowerPoint. Oh,
Neighbors?
Ms. Schaefer, could you guys take that discussion outside, please? Thank you. Sorry to interrupt, but we need to. Thank you.
I'm ready.
Okay.
So this is agenda item 5, extraterritorial plat review. This is consideration and possible action on a proposed certified survey map to create 4 lots on a 39.42 acre parcel located in the town of Port Washington on the west side of County Highway KW and northeast of County Highway H. Nick Suddendorf is agent, and Harbor City Holdings are the applicants. So looking at the board, on the left-hand slide is the location of the subject parcel directly across from the existing storage buildings. And then on the right, we have the CSM with the proposed 4-lot subdivision. I might add that this is part of the extraterritorial plat review. The town of Port Washington has approved this CSM and is just awaiting the city's review.
If you'd like. If any of the commissioners have questions on the item. No questions? Okay, I'd be looking for a motion then.
So moved. I'll second.
Moved in second. Any discussion on the motion? None being heard. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No one. The motion carries. Now on to item 6. Mr. Harris.
All right, this is a minor review. This is a consideration and possible action on a minor review to amend a previously approved building site and operations plan, and that's related to the Maritime Sheds Light Industrial Development located at the northwest corner of Maritime Drive and South Park Street. Maritime Sheds LLC is the owner, and Nick Suddendorf applicant. So if you recall from the previously approved building site and operations plan for this development, it's that collection of light industrial condominium developments. This is the rendering of the previous approval, or existing, I might add, and then this is the proposed rendering. The purpose of the changes, with finalization of the civil plans, it was identified that there'd be a sudden 2-foot change in grade, and that will essentially require the step that you see in the foreground of this rendering. And so doing so will give the buildings kind of that change in the roof line with the 2-foot step and corresponding grade change. Related to that, because of the step, it would be functionally a little more efficient if the garage overhead doors were going from the original 8-foot spacing to 20-foot spacing. That is the other change being requested. The third change is the color, going from, I think it's the gray and black to more of the, what did I have? I think I have the beige and black. Let me just confirm that real quick. Charcoal and black to beige and black, yep. And then lastly, and it's not in the rendering, but there's the elimination of the dumpsters. I think the tenants will be having that enclosed inside their units, their respective units, but they are going to be remaining a 3 if the association wishes to do that. There's space on the civil site plan for that, along with the enclosures. And so, given these 4 requested changes to the building and site plan, I think the original recommendations of approval that were given when this was originally going through this body stand, and staff recommends approval. Just like the last item, Nick is here for questions or comments.
Any commissioners have any questions, comments?
How about why the change in color? Just curious.
Nick, can you come up? Sorry. You bring your assistant too. Oh, no.
What I was saying, what's funny about it is the renderings don't do, where'd they go? The renderings don't do a very good job of depicting the actual colors. The second one that I'm showing here tonight kind of looks very brown compared to the original charcoal and gray. That charcoal color is actually, in the sunlight, it appears very blue. Kind of looks charcoal here. I brought some other metal samples to sort of show you. But on the east side of Park Street, north of this site, there's all those mini storage buildings, and they're all that kind of blue color. There's also some other faded blue buildings in that area, and we felt like we really didn't want it to look blue. There's just too much of that there. So the beige and black, which we're switching to, is actually I don't know what you guys think of when you think of beige, but it's kind of a light gray. I think it looks more like the charcoal and black rendering that was originally provided than the blue one. So
Yeah.
that's the reason for the color change.
So you don't have, Nick, you don't have a site plan with what was submitted tonight?
I do. I can spread it out if you want.
No, that's, well, I guess I'm just, with the step, the 2-foot step, just curious how you're handling that in the drive area. Is this going to be just asphalt with the step? Is this going to be a retaining wall? How is this all going to?
We have it shown here with a small wall, and I'm anticipating that extending out from the building 18 to 20 feet, roughly the depth of a parking spot. But with 20 feet in between there, I don't really want to roll the asphalt down, but it would sure be nice for plowing not to have a step in there. So I'm exploring maybe a little landscape island to break up the asphalt and kind of handle that grade change. Otherwise, the small 2-foot wall would be an option as well.
Well, yeah, and I can just imagine you get a big snowfall and all of a sudden, if the plow guy is not paying attention and they're dropping off that thing, or, just to make sure that more so that that's noticeable.
Yeah, I think if that ends up being the case, we'd probably end up putting a bollard on the end of it or some sort of small railing system.
Okay.
Yeah, just to follow a little bit on what Mike was saying, Nick, is that either a wall or landscape, I think is fine. I'd hate to see it, you know, a paved slope there that's dropped off.
Yeah, I agree. I should mention that a couple of the buildings on the north, so what we're looking at here is a rendering of the buildings on Maritime, which would be the south side of the site. Yep, right there. On the north side of the site, there's some 3-unit buildings, and we're also stepping those. One of those buildings would have a 1-foot step in between each unit, and the other one has a 2-foot step in between each unit. So this condition is going to exist sort of throughout the site, and whatever we do, we're going to try and make it uniform. And
Actually, as far as the building, it adds a little bit more interest to step the building, you know. I don't have
so
a
as
problem
well.
with that. It really is just making sure you're careful on how you address that step in the drive, in the lanes, or in the parking area.
I think it'll make grading overall much better. You know, they'll be able to keep the buildings above adjacent streets this way.
Yeah. Which is always good.
Yeah.
Commissioner Canope.
Can I speak remotely from over here? So I'm looking, and I kind of remember this when we were reviewing it, the issues with the grading, because that entire site, I mean, it's almost,
it's really deceiving how much it
it's
changes.
what is it? I don't want to do the math, but it's like close to 15 feet, I think. And in looking at the plan, or not the plan, but the rendering, but then looking at the plans, and Roger, I guess part of this is a question for you as well. Nick, was there any consideration in terms of taking the overhead doors from the center of the 2 units and putting it on sort of the ends instead of having it in the middle where that break is, where that step would have to be? Did you look at all at maybe putting it there? And I know that then triggers, what do you do with these curb cuts, which where it becomes a Roger thing, that would we possibly consider an additional curb cut to kind of play all of the ends of this, where if we could flip where that overhead door is, it might help, it might be able to partner with the building adjacent to it. But I know that there are some pretty swift grades there.
Yeah.
But does it help you any if that has a better look is taken at that, and possibly worked with city engineering to, instead of the 2 curb cuts, potentially going to 3?
I guess I didn't think about the 3 curb cuts. I did explore moving the overhead doors to the far sides of the building. Ultimately, I stepped away from that because to access that overhead door with sort of the curb cut being central, you'd come in and you'd have to swing all the way around to
Right.
pull in. I think with the 20 feet of separation, we'll be able to handle it effectively. And it also makes, for the interior space, having that door 10 feet off the wall makes that really usable space for racking and storage. Rather than having it 4 feet off, you kind of lose that 4 feet
Right.
in the interior.
I mean, just opine on the 3 curb cuts. I don't see that being an issue. The only place I'd really just would watch would be on the corner of Maritime and Park, that we don't get a curb cut too close to the corner.
And actually, with that, Roger, there's the stormwater detention pond on the corner of Park and Maritime, where I think we might have the issue is the entry into the entire court if we move that over. But I'm just trying to find, if not to delay this, because I think this, we picked up on the fact that the grading on this is going to affect such a long footprint, or a slab, right, of these buildings. At some point, something's got to give, or you're having a lot of fill on one end. But if those doors were flipped in some way, and maybe one stays where it is, and there's a combination of flipping and that with the addition of a curb cut, if that enhances at all, and if engineering is not taking an exception to it, it may be an option as well. Not that this is not a good option, I think this is, but I do understand what you're saying relative to the plowing. That if we had it today, right? And is there a chance that we might be able to, with some reworking on that side, that it might be more beneficial?
I can continue to explore the doors. I think I like the curb cuts the way they are. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of went through a lot of it, and this scenario with the 20-foot doors is sort of what I settled on as. But I appreciate the support.
And I would just say, I mean, Nick, you should do what's appropriate for your development, but I guess you do have an approved condo plat so if you start, not that shouldn't weigh into your decision, but you would have to revise some of that if you do change it.
I guess I'll move to approve based on staff recommendations with no change to the original conditional approval.
Second.
Any questions on the item? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? None being heard, motion carries. We are now on to item 7, minor review, consideration, and possible action on proposed facade improvements to Sir James Pub, 316 North Franklin Street. Jason Rabus, applicant.
Thank you, Alderman Newmeyer. So this is a facade improvement for a building in the Franklin Historic District. This is Sir James Pub with some proposed facade improvements, specifically, as you can see from the slides, the removal of the shingles to expose the Cream City brick, replacement of both the bar entrance door and the apartment door, and then replacing of the main front window with that design or that product that you see on the slide. That is really it as far as my presentation. We do have Lindsay here if you have any questions or comments.
Any commissioners? Comment, questions?
Knopp? Yeah, I would like to say, first off, thank you for investing more into your building and making it better. Will it be kind of a sad day to not see the shingles in front of Sir James Pub? Maybe for some people, I'm sure not for you guys. But what you are presenting is really, really fitting to what I think a lot of us feel is the true character of Sir James Pub. And you've done a great deal of that reinvestment back into the business with your sign and with the awning. And I think this is just that natural next step. I think it's going to look great. And thank you.
Commissioner Ehrlich.
Well, I concur with Commissioner Knopp. I do think what I like about it is it brings the character of what the pub is out to the facade rather than just kind of another storefront, and not that those storefronts aren't great, but this really brings the character and speaks to the character of what the pub is, and it's become a staple in Port Washington, and so I think it's a great thing, and I too applaud your investment. This is a long time coming.
Anybody else? Roger?
No, I like the improvements you made. I guess the one thought, have you looked behind the shingles to know what you have for brick? You don't know for sure what you're going to run into back there?
On the inside, it's brick, and there's a is, there's brick above it, there's brick underneath the awning,
Yeah, I'm not thinking more along the lines of how much tuck pointing and stuff there might be behind there, but yeah, I would fully anticipate that it is brick behind it.
yeah,
But
we have truck runners and mason mix on standby if they're ready to go. So we're ready for the extra investment regardless of what it is.
Can you, just your name and then where you're from, please?
Scott Tyler. I'm kind of bend down a little bit. I'm from Grafton originally, but I live in Waukesha. I work for Window Depot USA. It's the company that would be doing this. We have a phenomenal reputation. Feel free to look us up. So we do a really good job. I just wanted to say too, above the door, there's a top transom that would also have art glass that would match everything. It doesn't show because it's a custom size, so they had to actually draw it out by hand, but that would also have art glass in it as well. So.
Okay. I will say the leaded glass adds that extra special piece that I think is very fitting to your establishment. So I appreciate that choice.
I would concur with all the commissioners. I worked with your dad for 30 years.
Yes.
Just older. The motion? Okay, I have a motion. Second? Second. Any comments on the motion? None being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Motion carries.
Motion by whom and second by whom?
By Mr. Ehrlich, second by Mr. Cano. Motion carries. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Say hello to your folks for me.
Good luck.
Now we're moving on to item 8, zoning text amendment, consideration and possible action on a request to add recording studios as a conditional use in the I-1 existing industrial district. Nick Suttendorf, you're up again.
All right, I don't have any other slides for this. This is just a request for a zoning text change. And the purpose of the zoning text change would add recording studios as a conditional use in the I-1 industrial district. Right now, as I show on the attachment, there's the list of zoning uses under conditional uses. Number 8 being public and recreational facilities such as indoor, outdoor, rinks, archery, go-karts, or any other such uses determined by the Plan Commission. It's a common entertainment, recreation, kind of a common use that we see in industrial parks, particularly for children's birthdays, or the trampoline parks or the laser tag parks that we have. The request by both the property owner and Nick as the applicant is to add recording studios in this. And then usually when we look at zoning, the cities or the planners, they kind of, if it's a use that could fit under existing uses, we kind of look for flexibility. I think just this use, it just didn't lend itself to doing that. And so the request was just to request a zoning text change, add that specific use to I-1 industrial. Just given the nature of recording studios, looking at the kind of large open spaces that, and then for the large studio spaces and storage, looking at it kind of lended itself to adding it into those types of buildings that we see here in I-1. And as such, I would recommend adding this use to I-1 and I-1 only as a conditional use. Again, Nick is here for questions and comments.
And commissioners, questions?
I think this makes a lot of sense. I see this as just kind of being much more of an iterative piece, especially in this zoning. We can determine by both use by right and conditional use what is right in here, but it's great to have these kind of opportunities pop up and say, well, hey, it'd be really great is to have a recording. So, and I actually do appreciate the fact that it's not explicit to whether it's video or audio. It could be either, because both might need that level of space that we may not be able to have in other areas. And I feel like the either the business barn idea, the size of that lends itself more to something like this, where somebody could have a business in that, as opposed to a big industrial warehouse where it might have to be subdivided off. So this is, it's very fitting for that. And I think it's right. And I think it kind of lends itself into a little bit the next agenda item as to looking forward, how do we go through that process? But this is a very sensical thing for us to move forward with.
Any other comments? If not, I'd be looking for a motion.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments on the motion at all? None being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks.
Unless your team member would like to get up and speak. I think that's in our minutes, you have to speak. Okay, thank you very much. We are now moving to item 9, zoning code rewrite, consideration and possible action on proposed public participation plan for the zoning code rewrite and update to the Plan Commission on zoning code rewrite project. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Alderman Newmeyer. So this is actually an action item, and this is for the proposed public participation plan, for the now underway zoning code rewrite project for the city. It was the consulting team that we have that recommended we put together an actual public engagement plan, similar to how it works with there's comprehensive planning, there's a public engagement plan, and to make it an actual approved item either by Plan Commission or Council by voice vote, resolution, what have you. So we have this actual plan to follow or reference to by putting together, just outlining the steps that we're taking. This is for your review and comment, and then if you're so moved is to make an approval. Just quickly walking through it, there's just a number of outlets that's being proposed as far as keeping this project visible and allowing persons or groups to engage. We've already scheduled a date for the mayor to make a project video that will be on our website just to introduce the project. The consulting team did ask me to do it, similar to my counterpart in Hartford, where they're working on the zoning code now. I politely declined. I thought the mayor would do a much better job with the video. I don't have, you'll never see me in a radio broadcast career. So, plus I think he looks better too. So a little compliment there. Moving along, so there'll be a dedicated project website along with the surveys, and it'll be through the city website. How it will work is that this was part of the scope of work by the consultants. They will provide all the materials, information for various steps to the zoning code rewrite, and then we will put it on our dedicated website on the city page. There'll be city staff working meetings, so we do have an internal staff group that will be working with GRAFE and Civitech. This is just really primarily those of us in the basement that deal with the zoning code on a regular basis. So that's myself, the building inspector, the city engineer, and also the director of public works. Those will be kind of the working group. And then what we have and outlined in red here is where it affects the Plan Commission meeting. So we have scheduled quarterly meetings with the Plan Commission. This will be with the consulting team and the Plan Commission meeting. either during a regular meeting or a special meeting. And this will be at kind of key moments on a quarterly basis for both updates and then review of what's being presented to the Plan Commission. And also there'll be a joint commission between the council and the Plan Commission. A date that will be determined by myself, the working group, and also, if need be, both the council and the commissioners. Along with the stakeholder meetings, there'll be an open house, and then we're looking at wrapping this project up, hopefully by mid-2025. And so, hopefully, I don't know if you had a chance to review when this packet went out on Friday, but I'm looking for any comments or questions about the proposed engagement plan.
Any comments from any commissioners?
Bob, I guess with Plan Commission, are they intending on coming early to Plan Commission to kind of get a flavor of issues and concerns Plan Commission has before they get too far along, or are you thinking that they're going to work for 3 months and then come in?
It all comes down to where we are, and I'll coordinate with Grafe and Civitech when they're ready. As far as will it be at the beginning of a scheduled Plan Commission meeting or just a special meeting, that's TBD. And once if we're a month out, ready for that first quarterly meeting, I'll meet with I'll query the Plan Commission meeting and how we want to do it best.
Commissioner Knoll?
Yes. So, Bob, I recognize that the plan that they've got here doesn't necessarily reflect sort of the timeline, the temporal piece of what comes first, what goes next with that. I would want to share with you to share with the consultants, and this is only because I'm personally going through this on 3 projects with 3 different counties of doing community listening sessions and involvement and all of that. And by the way, staying at a Holiday Inn Express while doing those. I feel like we've got 8 stakeholder meetings identified on here, and knowing that our zoning ordinances, it's a lot. There's a lot there. And to just have 8 meetings that we can just talk about a lot of stuff in any one of those times, it's going to be a cat herding experience for Grafe, for Civitech, and for yourself. And maybe what might be very beneficial is to consider using those 8 stakeholder meetings, or maybe just a portion of them, to be focused on like-minded zoning ordinances that would have similar interests in it. So i.e. zoning code might have 2 separate meetings in it based off of what we have in there relative to, I'm just trying to think of how we might break it out. But then we've got the other municipal, this is just zoning, right? Not municipal, correct?
No, this is just the zoning.
Okay, so.
Along with, part of the scope also involves the consulting team to review our subdivision ordinance.
Which
And
is
make-
in,
yeah,
right,
and-
which
and
is
prov-
in
which is
the.
separate,
Yeah.
and provide recommendations only.
Okay, so, yeah, then maybe we have like business and industrial as a focus in one meeting. We have residential components in another meeting. And that way we can get the right people at those meetings as opposed to, and it can be a much more focused discussion with that. I would also say that it would be beneficial to have those Plan Commission meetings, maybe one getting us up to speed first, then have those stakeholder meetings, and then come back and say, hey, this is what we've been hearing from these key groups on these items, and just try to make the most effective time of what Grafe has budgeted for this effort, so we all can have a very productive path forward on it. And then maybe a couple of stakeholder meetings at the end to button up some of these loose ends that will be there. I mean, there will be something like, okay, I mean, and then you have oddities, like our sign thing. We know we have to address that. That could very well be its own meeting. So I'm just saying, as we go through this, having Grafe and yourself and Civitech go through and maybe game plan you just take the zoning ordinance and just take each title of each chapter and be like, how could we chunk these together? And I think it would be a very helpful experience for us. And then when we get to an open house, we're all much more well-informed and of those issues.
Great.
So that would be my only comment and or suggestion.
Any other commissioners, comments on it at all? It's just an action item, so we don't need to vote on that, as I recall.
No, we'll do a action and vote on the public engagement plan. So
You'd like a vote on it?
staff recommends approval subject to final plan commission recommendations on the public engagement plan.
Do we have a motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Second. Motion and second. Any other discussion on the motion? None being heard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is adjournment.
Second.
Disappointing. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.